Hello and welcome into another video. And today I suddenly realized, so I've been in the middle of making a bunch of clips, and to be honest, they're a lot longer than clips. And the whole point is to compile them into a video about a bunch of gaming knowledge that I feel new gamers would not know, would like to know, would need to know, should know, just things like waterfalls and that. But I keep doing clips where I'm like, this is not really so much learning about hidden code stuff with the game. This is more, I'm talking general stuff now as well. And I realized it's because I'm actually making two videos. At first, I honestly didn't think this was going to happen, but I'm making two videos, and this is now the start of the new one. And basically, one of them is going to be about a bunch of things like, as I say, waterfalls, and one of them is going to be this video, where it's going to start off with the first one I'm going to talk about is reloading versus weapon swapping. This is something that if you are brand new to a first-person shooter or any kind of third-person action game or anything at all where you've got a shit ton of weapons and that, something that new gamers genuinely seem to forget and struggle with is the fact that not every gun auto-reloads. Well, on a technicality, every gun kind of does auto-reload the way a lot of modern-day gaming works, but usually it's a case of that when I'm firing the trigger there, I am automatically reloading. Sometimes you need to push the trigger again, but for the most part, you're supposed to be pushing the reload button. And a lot of new gamers genuinely don't realize this. It's something that it does have to be ingrained into you, that you have to remember to reload your weapons after any fight. Obviously, especially in the middle of a fight, but the amount of times where I will play with people and they'll have fired through their entire ammo thing, and then they'll be coming up to the next fight, and suddenly it's like, oh crap, this gun doesn't have any ammo in it, and they'll be in the middle of reloading, and the reload can get them killed, because not every gun reloads that quickly, like this one here. But there's also, for the guns that do take forever to reload, like this one here, it's not the longest, but it took some time. Do you know what's faster though? Doing that. Sometimes weapon swapping versus reloading is definitely the way to go. Unfortunately, this is one of those things that it can have negative benefits, because you can get to the point where it's like, oh crap, this gun's about to run out, I need to swap, so I'll swap to that. Oh, that one's run out now, so I'll swap to that. So that one's run out now, so I'll swap to that. And now all of my guns need reloading at the exact same time. Now, it's not much of an issue. The game that I'm particularly playing here, I'm ridiculously over leveled. I went into a controlled environment to try and show this off. The other thing that a lot of new gamers tend to forget about, and hell, it's something that even veteran gamers forget about, the amount of times I'll be playing a game and suddenly I'll realize, oh shit, I'm not using my ability. And sometimes it's because I've only just been given the ability. So if I've been playing a game for like 10 hours and then randomly I get something brand new, it's kind of hard to remember, oh yeah, I've got this new thing. So make it a point that whenever you get an ability, try to like ingrain it into your brain to go, okay, so I need to start getting used to pushing this button. I need to, if it's something that isn't infinite, I understand that can be a problem, because it's like, well, I already have issues of maybe not wanting to use it in this fight, because what if I've run out or anything like that? I get that that can also cause that problem, and then a lot of people can end up going through the game without using it at all. But in the likes of this, with Borderlands, all of my abilities are on cooldowns, so as soon as you get a new one, just start spamming the ability, even when you don't need it. As long as you're not going to cause any harm, as long as you're not going to kill an NPC that you're not supposed to kill, watch out for that. Some games that is an issue. This, again, Borderlands 3 isn't, and there's no NPCs around here in this section that I've set up anyway. But the amount of times that I will get an item and then just forget to use it throughout the entirety of the game because I'll have been saving onto it, or because I just forgot that I was given it. There's been times when I've been playing a game and bashing my head against a brick wall trying to figure out, why can't I make this jump? Why can't I do this puzzle? Why can't I do this thing? And then suddenly I'll have this weird piece of knowledge in my mind, or it can even be a case of I'll go to the options and I'll be looking at the controls and suddenly I'll be like, oh shit, yeah, it literally gave me the ability to do this extra jump, didn't it? And I've just never used it because I've never had the chance to use it. Or suddenly I've got this ability to blow up a wall and I completely forgot about it. I've just knocked my mouse off, which funnily enough, that's what actually predated this video. I knocked my mouse off, this brand new mouse, for the first time, knocked it flying off a desk, and I've just managed to do it again by moving my arms while I'm in the middle of playing. So yeah, either way though, I think the whole point of learning when to reload versus when to weapon swap, learning to make sure to use your abilities, like anything like that, any game where you've got a heavy amount of action and you need to be able to swap readily between what you're doing in order to kill an enemy, it is that kind of a loop that you're going to need to develop, that kind of loop that you need to build into yourself. If it's a game like Diablo 4, where it's a top-down game and the whole point is that you're running a chain of commands, so it is as simple as your primary attack into your secondary into your special, like, and there's a different button for each of them. If I'm on a controller, it will be like left trigger, left bumper, right bumper. It kind of gets to the point of you hold the A button down to do your main attack, your X button does your generate mana back, essentially. I know it's not mana, I should know this, I've put 1,000 hours into fucking Diablo, but I'm completely blanking. And it would be a case of cycle through left bumper, left trigger, right trigger, just going through the motions like that. It's kind of the same with games like this, where it's, okay, so I need to know what, use the shotgun first, swap to the assault rifle, swap to the SMG, you know, things like that. Right, on to the next clip. So, on top of a bunch of hint, tips, general things, like how to look behind waterfalls, I also knew that I would be doing some things in this video purely around hints, I guess, and to say that sometimes with games, you have to remember they are toys. Like, that's what all of this is. It's essentially, it's a fancier, more electronic, like, toy. And how you interact with the toy does change what different effects happen, essentially. And it's why there's no right game to really put on to show this, but I figured a roguelike might be the best. And I could have actually done one of it on Elden Ring, but I figured I'd at least try to do a bunch of different games, seeing as I'm going to the effort of actually editing all of this together. I could have done it with Elden Ring, though, where you can use something that's called a frost proc in that game. And basically, by using frost, you freeze the enemy and it deals a massive amount of damage. And then if you swap to a fire attack, you instantly thaw the enemy, allowing you to reset to be able to do another frost proc. There are times in video games when you will have to learn how the game works, how the game functions, and what the elements are. So, for example, with this here, it's called Borlex Pit, and the whole point is you build up an arsenal of different power-ups, abilities while you're playing through the game, and I will actually put some footage on, but the character select screen is kind of the perfect thing for me to be able to show. I've got this character here, the warrior, who has a ball with spikes on it that causes bleed. There are so many different things that will synergize with bleed in different ways, and the only way to actually discover that is to fuck about with it and try it. And that is one of the joys of gaming, that is one of the fun parts about gaming. But I also understand that is also one of the overwhelming parts of gaming, because sometimes it'll be on a like game by game basis, and sometimes it could be as simple as I've just mentioned with Elden Ring. You can freeze an enemy, you can thaw an enemy, so you can freeze it again and deal more damage. Then there'll be The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, where if you have fire around ice, it melts and it can ruin the puzzle. Or you can have games where, so instead of the fire being a benefit to the ice, like in Elden Ring, the fire is actually detrimental to the ice in Breath of the Wild. That basically, it's one of those that is an annoyance, because no two game is ever alike, and it is always one of those that you have to learn specifically what works with this one specific video game. And that is something that a lot of people may not understand when they're getting into gaming, and when they're, especially if you go from one game where you think, well, hey, games are games, this video game just taught me that this element affects this, so electric and water. Pretty much everyone knows in real life that you don't stick electric things in water, it's incredibly dangerous. There's times in, for example, Breath of the Wild, like I've already mentioned, where that can actually be a puzzle solution. There's times when it can be used as a weapon. So this one isn't so much an actual, hey, this is something I can show you by pointing out, but I also kind of can. That I'm lucky that I was able to set it up with the character thing on Borlex Pit here. I knew that by going for Bleed and the Vampire, I think that one was called the Vampire, I can basically then get the Vampire Lord. It's all about synergy, it's all about practicing, it's all about trial and error, and there are definitely games like a roguelike where it comes into play more often than not, because you have to learn so many different things. There's hundreds of combinations in this game. That's one of the things that's overwhelming about it. But in a game like Zelda, in a game like Elden Ring, it's usually very basic, specific rules. The only other thing that I could potentially add it to this, and I was mulling over, do I actually load Half-Life 2? Basically what I'm trying to say is the game's physics engine and the game's, how the game functions, And with Half-Life 2, that is a great onboarding for teaching you how the Source engine, which all of Valve's games are made on essentially, it teaches you how to do things in the Source engine, because that was what the game was actually designed to do. It was also designed to be like an amazing video game, but you will come across a puzzle where there's a body of water and there's a bridge, and you need to be able to ride over the bridge to be able to continue on your way, but every time you drive your vehicle onto the bridge starts to sink down because there's too much weight on it. And when you look around the area, there's basically barrels that are filled with air that you can manipulate, like pick up, you can throw them around. You have to dive under the bridge and dump a bunch of these barrels in so that it lifts up the ramp that you're trying to drive over. It's loads of little things like that with video games that you'll find weird experimentation will be required to do, and sometimes the game doesn't always tell you that, because at the end of the day, what would be the point in it literally telling you how to beat everything? That's actually one of the complaints, that as games have been modernised and we've got to the point where we've realised that not everyone will have a lot of this intrinsic gamer knowledge, you will have games like It Takes Two, where I personally do not like It Takes Two, one of the most popular games to come out over the last 5-10 years, and it's because every single time I played that game, the main characters of the game would tell you how to solve every single puzzle within a couple of seconds of seeing it. It never gave me, and the person I was playing it with, a chance to figure it out. And it's not exactly advanced puzzles or anything, at least for myself, who's played so many hours of games, it's unbelievable. But it's one that, by doing that modernization, yes, it does help out some people, but it also ruins the game for a lot of others, and it's something that they're still working on. We still have issues in games today where side characters will tell people way too much about what it is. But I also understand that when you have games like Ball XP and games like Half-Life 2 out there, where it's not exactly very hand-holdy and it's all about trial and error and figuring out what you have to do and figuring out the game's engine and the game's system and figuring out what you can do with rain in Breath of the Wild, another one where an element of the weather, like weather itself, can be something you have to learn about in games. You can play Monster Hunter Wilds and there'll be suddenly a sandstorm. That can be an issue to you. There can be a rainstorm. That can be an issue. It can change the ground that you're walking on. It's just a lot of things like that. And I don't even know how best to really, like, what to even call this tip, because I know this is something that seems so general and so vague, but I promise you it is something that I know fine well. I have spoken to people in games, like I've spoken to people who play, I've spoken to people who are new at games, I have spoken to a hell of a lot of fucking people whilst building up this series, and it's like, hey, what are some of the things that you struggled with? What are some of the things that, you know, like, I'm trying to go from that angle and trying to find out things that a lot of people take for granted, and the amount of times where it's just like, oh yeah, sometimes just knowing that just because ice and fire functions in one way in one video game doesn't mean ice and fire functions in another way in another video game. There will be plenty of times where you will actually put a game on and you will see ice and fire beside each other, and your brain will be telling you, hey, that should be melting the ice, but no, because that's just not the way it works in that game, you know? Right, on to the next one. So, if you're actually a gamer who is watching this, and not one of the people that essentially these videos are intended for, which obviously anyone is welcome to watch or anything, and I will be asking for your input at the end. I can't cover everything, there's just absolutely no way, and obviously, well, I might as well mention it now. Yeah, please do put down anything that, if I don't mention it here, then put it in the comments so that other people might be able to get help. And I know I've already made a video similar to this before, but this was before when I was having severe tech issues, and I always wanted to do this and really expand on it. And if you're watching it, you might be thinking, which one are they going to mention here? Because Resident Evil does so many that I could mention, and I know I was trying to limit one per game, but after what's happened with when I ended off recording Silksong, I think I kind of have to cover all of them in Resident Evil as well, that it's guilty of. Resident Evil is one of the franchises that is most infamous for yellow paint. So, for the most part, this entire video is going to be, well, this entire part of the clip is going to be about observing your environment again, but I understand I'll have technically mentioned this, but not in the ways that Resident Evil. This is... So, if you are totally new to gaming, do you have any idea that you're supposed to shoot that because it's a flammable barrel, and if you've seen a bunch of action movies, then you might know. But yeah, that's a weapon. Your environment tells you more than you... In the case of Resident Evil, because again with the yellow paint and they're making people angry, the environment in some of the games tells you more than you will ever need to know. You just truly do have to observe it. So in the actual campaign, I am currently in essentially an arcadey fun game mission mode where the whole point is to get a high score. In the main game, there will be yellow paint all over the place, directing me where to go. I most likely will never get lost playing a game that has this much yellow paint in it, because it's designed so that you don't get lost. That can be a modernization that angers a lot of people, but as a gamer who has grown up being lost in so many games, it still doesn't erase the fun that I have exploring. It just definitely does guide me, because it also means that, oh, if I go that way, I'm going the right way. And that means that I now don't want to go that way, because there are many times in games where you will not want to go the correct way. Because you'll want to explore, you'll want to get secrets, you'll want to find ammo, you'll want to do this, that and the other. So when a game shows you the blatantly right way with the yellow paint, it is incredibly useful actually to know that you're not going to accidentally progress the story, have a cutscene trigger where suddenly the village gets blown up and you can't ever come back here, and it's like, oh, well, I've missed my chance to ever get that. So, on top of those environmental clues of your environment can be your weapon, your environment can be your guide, your environment can also be your warning. There are so many times, especially in Resident Evil, you will walk into a room and it'll be like, oh, there's a hell of a lot of ammo here, and there's a lot of health here, and there's a save point here. To a non-gamer, genuinely, I have had conversations where it's like, oh, I just thought the game was being really generous and really nice. No. Firstly, don't ever assume that the game is trying to be nice to you. The game wants to beat you. That's kind of why people play games. You beat the video game. The video game doesn't beat you, you beat the game. And obviously there's definitely some nice games, there's some cozy games, and there's a lot of other things, but for the most part, the developers are going, I'm going to make something that I don't think you will beat, and then you go and beat it. And there's always a to and fro, there's always a different reason for different devs for why they want people to interact with the art and stuff like that. I am obviously being very short-handed here with a lot of terminology. But the point, most of the point, was let's make something that would challenge kids at the time, challenge adults, challenge whomever actually plays games, and if they beat them, then they'll move on to something else. So, assuming that the game was just being nice and giving you a bunch of ammo and giving you a save point and giving you a nice save space, it's giving you them for a reason. And any gamer knows what that reason is. There's a boss fight coming. Something is going to happen that will rock your fucking shit so hard it is unbelievable. And again, I'll have mentioned about how a lot of things can break immersion, but this is just typical gamer knowledge that you will pick up. Like, it really is. It's the sort of thing that your subconscious will pick up on even if you don't realise it. Video games used to be even worse with it. They used to have an auto-saving mechanic. Half-Life 2, a lot of that game's immersion was ruined for me because the auto-saving appeared whenever there was going to be a boss fight. Now, I could still figure out a lot of these things, but the fact that I then had the visual reminder, if your subconscious knows it, your subconscious isn't going to be spoiling the game for you. There'll be times that you'll walk forward and you'll of course go, oh, this is a boss fight, but then there'll be other times where it'll still kind of blindside you because you won't quite piece it together, and then the subconscious kicks in and it's like, oh yeah, I didn't want to spoil it type thing. I understand a lot of what I'm saying here. A lot of these tips could be seen as ways to be less immersed in video games, but it is the sort of thing that you will pick up on. You just will naturally, even if you're not as autistic as fuck like I am, you will pick up on it naturally, because this is pretty much how every major game works. It's just the way it is. If you get sudden, like, it is extremely rare, and when games do it, it's the kind of thing that they do. I'm trying to think of the word, something breaking, not subversion breaking. Basically, I now can't at this moment in time think. The brain fog is so thick with just trying to get that I'm going to have to now spiral out of it and see what you're expecting not happening is rare in a lot of things. Like, for example, I expected this to run fine, but apparently OBS is making it freeze suddenly. But yeah, what you expect to happen to then not happen is rare in games. And when that does actually catch you off guard, it's the ones that you remember the most. So it's like the developers understand this as well. It's like, hey, every now and then we'll throw you something where it's like, we haven't give you a bunch of ammo, we haven't give you a save point, we haven't give you the health, and here's a boss anyway, and then it really adds some dread in. But for the most part, a lot of these things run on the same script, you know? Especially Capcom. Capcom really, I don't think they've changed their script of how to play a horror game since Resident Evil 7. So I think that is all of the environmental factors that I actually wanted to discuss here, and it's why this really was the perfect game. Because yeah, I understand, to some people, running past a crate, those ones I feel are more obvious. They've really got flammable, they're all over the place, but also I could see them being a case of, if I'm totally new to games, my normal brain is, when I see something flammable in real life, I'm not going, ooh, that's a great way to kill a bunch of people, because, yeah, that would be a bit fucked up. I'm saying, oh, I have to be careful around that, that's really dangerous, you know? That's what my brain goes to. It goes, oh, that's danger. My brain doesn't go, you know what, that's a great way to kill a bunch of zombies in a game. So, yeah, It is why I wanted to at least specifically bring it up, that even when it is something that feels a little more obvious, like the barrels in Resident Evil feel a little more obvious, the barrels in Borderlands especially. Borderlands has so many environmental traps and ways to kill your enemies. So many, and all of them kind of seem obvious more in that because it's a cartoony game, and maybe the cartooniness of it, like, your brain will go to, oh, I can imagine Bugs Bunny doing that, I can imagine Tom and Jerry doing that, I can imagine that happening in, whatever popular cartoon these days. Like, I know Bluey's popular, but I don't know if Bluey does that kind of. From what I've heard, it's actually incredibly based, but anyway. Kind of at the end of this clip, and truly do think I've covered everything that I wanted to with environmental factors. I know a lot of this video comes down to observing your environment, but there truly are different ways that the environment can be telling you different things, and it's ways that I needed to show it off. I probably should have loaded up for the yellow paint, but, I mean, honestly, even that item box over there, to be fair, has yellow paint on it, and the barrel to show me that, hey, there's stuff over here, come over here. So yeah, that I at least got to show some yellow paint off. I completely forgot, even the boxes. It's because it's visual noise to me. It's something that I just tune out now when I play the game. Obviously, the really, really, really big splashes of yellow paint are pretty hard to miss, but for the most part, I'm just like, oh yeah, that's an item box. That's the way, you know, that it becomes noise to me. It truly does become the subconscious picking up on things more than I'm actively noticing. But that is purely because I've spent a lot of time actively noticing throughout the years of playing games, you know. Alright, anyway, finally, on to the next clip. So, this next one, I don't even know which video this is going to appear in. I am in the middle of making a gaming tips and gaming lore video, and this could actually go in both of them. I don't know if I want to put it in both of them. It depends on how long the clip's going to be, so I guess I should just get on with it. I will try my best to actually set up when I can, but I realised I'd literally just beat the boss that I would have needed to talk about in here, so instead I'm still going to give you a general overview. One of the most obvious things in all of gaming, something that even gamers forget all the time, which is why this could actually appear in both videos. Whenever I watch people play Ocarina for the first time, whenever I watch quite a few people playing games, and there's moments where this very week, it happened to me playing a game. The meme is gamers don't look up. Yeah, in games where you have a camera that you could move around, look up. And honestly, pan it as well. It's not just a looking up scenario. The one that got me, the same thing happened in Elden Ring as well. So I'm playing through Elden Ring and I'm running and I cannot find where to go, and I keep running through this hallway. If I'd panned the camera just a little bit left, I'd have seen that there was a huge hole in the hallway. And that happened to me in Lies of P Overture as well this week. Gamers, for whatever reason, we get lazy with our camera. And if you're new to controlling a 3D game, these are older ones, so you don't really control the camera at the same time, this one specifically. But modern day games, you have two analogs, and you're usually controlling the camera constantly with your right analog. You need to get into the habit of moving it, not to a point of making yourself sick. Like, I'm not talking spinning it around in a circle. I'm actually glad this has a really slow frame rate right now, because I wouldn't want to make anyone sick, and I'm still going to stop it here. But I'm not saying, like, constantly spin the camera or anything, but you need to develop the habit of looking everywhere. Like panning the camera up, panning it down sometimes. You need to pan it to the left, pan it to the right. And it's something that you will get lazy with as well. Like, this happens to gamers all the time. Again, there's a reason gamers don't look up, is a saying. Because gamers don't look up. We all know to look up. We've been taught many, many a time in many, many a game that we really should just look up. I cannot tell you the amount of times that I have been stuck in a game, in a room, and after 5 minutes of trying to fathom what to do, I then suddenly had the realization of, did I ever pan the camera? And I look up, and suddenly it's like, oh, I shoot that, and shooting that brings a ladder down, and then I can climb up and get out. That is, like, literally the specifics of what happens for a lot of people in this dungeon, because when you get the slingshot, you know the answer is, I've got to be able to use the slingshot, and that is the only reason I ever solved that room, because the camera is set up in such a way where you can't see the ladder, because it's supposed to be tricky, and I'm looking around and I'm like, well, there's no way to jump back across, but it's just gave me the slingshot, I have to, and I did that, and I'm like, oh, there's a ladder if I look up. But I've seen so many people get trapped in that room for way longer. And the boss room of this actual dungeon, you walk in, and it's already taught you, hey, gamers, look up. This is kind of one of the first games to really try to teach you, gamers, look up. Because you walk into that room, and you can hear the noise, you can hear, like, this scratching, and it's like, oh, well, it sounds like one of the spiders that's here, but I can't see anything. And then, if you walk around long enough, they did make at least a couple of angles in that room so you can see the fucking boss. Because I think they really must have, in the playtesting done, people might just genuinely never look up. So they made it so that there was at least one angle you could see, but it takes some effort to even set that up. It's something that I've tried to do accidentally. Well, not accidentally, tried to set up before, and I've only ever managed it accidentally, is what I meant to say. So yeah, in the final room, and not to, like, spoil a very old Ocarina game or anything, and I know the remake's coming out, these are basic things of just looking up. And it's why I don't want to actually say what the boss is, and not really want to show anything here, because again, I know there's going to be a generation of people about to play this game for the first time. But yeah, when you get it, just look up. There's going to be some moments, like, I don't know what level of remake this is going to be, but I have a strong feeling that if it's a faithful remake, or if it's a like, from the ground up remake, they'll throw in something to do with, like, telling you to look up. Because this was the game that taught us how to use Z-targeting and how to look up and things like that. Right. Anyway, on to the next clip. So for this next clip, because I actually brought up Z-targeting in the clip I've literally just filmed, I figured, you know what, this is actually a time to bring up that, yeah, locking on your camera to fight is actually a thing in games. And I understand if you're a new gamer, you might think that that makes things too easy. No, this games were designed this way ever since the 3D thing, because people realized that actually following something that you're supposed to interact with, like attack, it's why I went for the most vicious enemy in all of Zelda here with the doggo. It's only because I'm a Deku scrub that it doesn't like me. And thankfully you can't actually hurt it, and it also kind of loses interest, it just goes and swims at times apparently. But yeah, keeping your focus on something in a three-dimensional plane. Granted, it's easier now where we have a right analog where we can actually pan the camera, but in the days of this, it was essential, and I still would argue it's essential. I'm good at Elden Ring. I don't think I will ever play Elden Ring and refuse to use the lock-on to make it more difficult. There's probably people out there who've done that, and locking onto an enemy does make things easier. At times. There are times when turning the lock-on off actually is more beneficial, because of the shape of the boss and the shape of the lock-on and that. But for the most part of the game, if I'm focusing on trying to stay alive in a hard game, knowing where the enemy is at any time, being able to have the camera constantly track the enemy that I'm looking at, not needing to worry about having to constantly real-time track it, while I'm also thinking about what attack style I'm going to do, because some enemies are tricky at the end of the day, some can teleport, things like that, and if the teleport and the lock-on steers, then that is a god-tier game. I love it when games do that, but I understand why they don't, because they're supposed to be difficult. But sometimes I'm like, you know what, I'm glad you decided to go for that. I wanted a teleporting enemy, but I didn't want it to make it too annoying for the gamer. But yeah, just being able to lock the camera on, I strongly suggest if you are learning a game, use the damn lock-on. Like, even if you haven't learned a game, like, even if you have been playing games for years, there's no reason to not use the lock-on. It truly does make things better. There is a reason that lock-on exists in games, as I say. It's like, it does make it easier in action games when you can just constantly wheel and attack the button, but usually that's not where the challenge of the game comes in. You know, like, that's not supposed to be the point. The point of combat being challenging isn't just so that it's infuriating and more difficult because you constantly have to aim everything up just right. Just when using a button like this to lock on, and I constantly know that I can spin into it because obviously I can't hurt the dog anyway, so don't worry about that. If like, Nintendo clearly were very serious with the whole, I want to make sure that I don't hurt the dog. Yeah, I can't remember how to... Is it... Oh, it's hold and select. Like, I'm sure it's ZL and ZR on other things. That cutscene takes forever. So yeah, I'm not trying to actually hurt the dog anyway, and I know you can't. If anything, the dog hurts me more, and it thankfully doesn't hurt me. But trying to actually aim for it, especially with this sort of attack, I can do it, but having the lock on and just constantly knowing that when I hold the direction, I'm going to go in the way of it. It's hilarious that it knocked me, like, aside just at the time. Like, this really is the most notorious enemy in the game. But yeah, I think I have hopefully explained enough as to why use the lock on. Right, on to the next clip. So for this next one, while I'm on my way to where I need to be, because I've already scouted out the location, remember, even in games that are designed to be brutally difficult, like this one here, and this is hilarious because you weren't here when I last scouted this location, so that took me by surprise, but even Silksong, which is considered by many to be an incredibly difficult, brutally difficult game, not that I can speak today, I did not particularly struggle with it because of the way that I just am with games, and I, if anything, wish it was a little bit harder. But I'm not going to lie and say there are times when things feel a little overwhelming, like this here. This entire scenario of 3 void enemies attacking me, being able to do a bunch of projectiles, but do you see how I realised, oh, things are a little hairy, I've lost a bunch of health. Now I'm over here by myself with just this one enemy, and I'm actually quite safe. If I had the ability to heal, I could heal up. I have not played this game in a while. There we go. If I wanted to summon an ad to be able to help me out, I can do that. Always remember, even in games that are designed to be brutally difficult, if the game is made well and it's fair, you will always have the power. You will be able to reset, you will be able to lure enemies away. Suddenly, I'm not having to fight 3 void enemies at the same time, and I'm not having to fight it by myself, because I've got my little buddy here, once I could remember what the controls were. This is one of my all-time favourite games, I need to come back to it, but I'm just like, what the fuck did I set that to? Because my brain went to Castlevania controls for some reason. But, yeah, I've managed to isolate one of the enemies. Now, I can just do the dodging game if I want to, and I'll leave my little buddies to go attack the void thing. Oh, look, and there we go. Now the other enemies came over. I always have the power. I choose when to engage. I choose how I engage. I can go in, like, head first and attack and miss like mad. I can go in and attack and kill. You know, I always had the power. Didn't matter how little health I had, what the scenario was. I could assess it how I wanted to. And this is one of those things that confidence, it might actually be the best way to describe it, as you need to develop your gamer confidence, because I understand there are a lot of times when shit feels overwhelming, especially if you are playing a game that is designed to punish you when you die. Not every game does that. Some games really do not treat death as a punishment at all, which is a complaint for some people, but there's games where it could be like this, where you earn rosaries, and every time you die, you lose your rosaries into a silk cocoon, and if you die a second time, then you lose them completely. So let's say I am on my way to retrieve my silk cocoon back, and I've barely got any health, and it's like, oh, well, I'm a little worried about this, like, they can really hurt me really badly. I can take my time, I can assess how I want to kill it, I can find unique ways to solve my problems like that, like hitting through the air floor where they couldn't get me. Granted, those ones can actually burrow through the floor, I don't know why that one didn't, but no matter what, I, as the gamer, I, as the player, always have the power. And sometimes it really is as simple as taking a breath, assessing the situation, figuring out what tactic is going to work for you, because everyone plays differently. When I'm playing this game at my peak, when I'm like actually focusing and playing to win and not trying to focus on what I'm trying to see next, I am an air combat person. That's why I tried to do it there, and that's not even a great enemy to really do it with, but I love being able to jump and dive and double jump and kick off enemies. I barely stay on the ground when I'm actually playing, because I've noticed, for me personally with my playstyle, that allows me to get in the maximum amount of damage between phases on hits on things. I can throw all of my abilities into designed purely to be speed and death. And yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought with where I was actually going with that, but I do think my point was that is not how everyone else plays. I've not really seen a lot of people who do air combat like me. There are a lot of us that exist. It's like one of those things where I haven't came up with a unique playstyle here, not at all. There will definitely be others who do it, but it doesn't seem like aerial combat is a very traditional one, especially with this setup, because so many people hate the Hunter's Pogo, but for me it works. So as much as I'm not trying to do two things in one game, although I guess I kind of am now, and I'll have said in another clip, I didn't know whether or not I wanted to just permanently do one in another and try to come up with different things, but this has came up naturally, so I think for now, figure out what your playstyle is definitely another part of it, and all of that plays into the whole gamer's confidence, to be fair. You need to figure out what works for you, because if you're confident in your abilities, if you know how you play, how your character feels to you, you'll always know that when shit goes down, when suddenly a boss appears out of nowhere, or an explosion or something designed to rattle you, designed to distract you, designed to take you off your game, if in doubt, pause it, take a deep breath. And I know there's a lot of people who might say that that breaks immersion, but if you are actually playing these sorts of really, really high adrenaline games, do remember that this is doing stuff to your brain as well, and sometimes that means that you're not thinking correctly, you're not processing your thoughts correctly. This is the same thing that I would be telling people if they were experiencing a crisis in real life. Take a breath. And again, if that ruins immersion for you, then obviously don't take a breath. Find out what works for you. But for me personally, if something goes down, if something really comes out of left field and throws me off my game, especially while I'm trying to gain back my rosaries, for example, in Silksong, the amount of times when it's just a case of, okay, take a breath, examine my surroundings, that's a kind of wall that I know I can latch onto, so I know I'd be safe here if it's an aerial attack coming at me, or if it's a ground up bottom attack or something. I can sit here, like, just assess your surroundings, figure out what works for you, figure out your playstyle, figure out what weapons to use, like, all of it builds up into what is essentially the overall topic of this clip. Not that, again, any of these are clips of how to build your gamer's confidence up, and why it's important that you do that. And it could be as simple as just learning and remapping your controls as well. As much as I was saying, I couldn't remember what I'd set that to. There is a reason I set that to that. And now that I immediately, as soon as I remembered it, it's like, oh yeah, that's my dodge, that's my dash, that's my... Like, it all came back to me. And the reason I do that is the controller, the control setup that I have done for this flows with what I'm always pushing. So I'm always cycling through when I know a double jump, when I know a dodge, when I know a slash down, when I know I know it's a bit like I've got the combo running in my head of what I'm pushing when I'm pushing. I can essentially play this game automated, and that may sound weird to not be playing it intuitively. Trust me, I am. But this is the sort of game, and this is specifically why I wanted Silksong on for this one very long conversation. Everything's programmed in a way so that you have to learn the pattern. And a lot of video games are like that, where it really is a case of you have to observe the fucking pattern. The whole boss fight of all of this is I have to learn what attacks are coming, when they're coming. I have to observe their tail, and I have to be confident that with all of my knowledge of what I can do, I can dodge it, I can duck it, I can get over it, I can deal damage to it. I have to know, like, it all... It's 3 tips in one, essentially, this one, I am aware. I've realised as I've been talking here, but it all does feed back together into your courage as a gamer, building up into this, and just taking the time to assess what you want to do, lure enemies away if you need to. Obviously, if you're in a boss fight, you're not going to be able to lure things away, but here, I don't have to fight both of these big things on the screen at once if I don't want to. I can choose which one to do, or I can just go past it, and then there's one here, I can choose to just go past it. So yeah, On to the next clip. So this next tip is actually all menu stuff, and it's technically 3 videos I've already done, which are much longer, where I go further into depth, but I've realized I should actually do that for this kind of video as well, but do a slightly lesser version. So James Bond First Light, I know it's officially just called First Light or 007 First Light, but this is one of the games that this year I've played it. I absolutely loved it. Really, really want a sequel. But when I first started up, I'm like, this plays like shit. And I don't know why it plays like shit. I don't know what it was. And it was the controls. I'm like, oh, yeah, so this is one of those games where they've done a different control scheme to what I am used to in my action games. And as a result, I was struggling to play it because I was having to get used to a new thing. So I'm like, okay, I know how this works. I'll just go into the controls. I'll toggle everything that I need to toggle. I'll go into the advanced controller settings and everything and change all of that. Unfortunately, I have stick drift, so I have to have a lot of dead zone. But then in the actual, not that I can fucking remember where it is. Of course, the game that I pick is the one that's awkward. You can, oh, there we go, customize input. It's actually at the start. I went into customize input, and I'm like, okay, so what specifically am I not vibing with? So sprint being right bumper. Why the hell is sprint right bumper? No game makes sprint right bumper. At least no game that I fucking play, because I always change that. So I started to change all of these controls, and then I started to realize something. By changing the controls, I made it even worse. This part of the tip is, do not just automatically put a game on and expect that it's going to run the way you want it to run. And this is another thing that, unlike movies, unlike books, unlike anything, unfortunately, gaming, any form of gaming, requires tweaking. Now, PC gaming, which is what I'm on to record this, it's even worse because I have to go in and I have to change a bunch of graphic stuff, and I have to change like all my audio setup to make sure that that's working. There's so many different tweaks that I need to do that it can take me best part of 30 minutes before I actually play a game that I've just put on for the first time. But controls is something that everyone on every console should look at, because if the game allows customizable controls, play it. If you're not vibing with it, change it. But if you're still not vibing with it, it might be that you do have to get used to this control scheme. I think what IO Interactive did specifically with Bond, it's not that they didn't want it to feel like other action games, because sometimes developers do this. Sometimes developers are like, well, I don't want people to just say that it feels like Elden Ring, you know? Meanwhile, there's games like Black Myth Wukong that literally has a control scheme pre-set up for people who play Elden Ring and Souls games, because they knew so many people were going to be jumping into it, and they knew so many people were going to already have that muscle memory of knowing what their buttons were. They just pre-made it and made sure that it works with the game, and that's when I played the game. I actually put it on that. I only played a couple of hours of it, to be honest, but I still put it on that. Some developers truly do not like the comparison, so they will intentionally make their controls worse, so that way you can see that the game feels like their game. And if you get used to their control scheme, then other things will feel worse. It's one of those egg before the chicken, chicken before the egg moments, where it's like what you get used to is part of the problem. But as a result, a lot of devs do try to understand, well, hang on a second, gamers who actually are going to be playing a lot of things are going to want some uniformity. Sometimes we have more than one game on the go at one time, and sometimes it's for the same genre. If we run into a boss fight that we are completely struggling with on one game, but we still want to play that style of game, so Elden Ring to Lies of P, my Lies of P setup is virtually identical to my Elden Ring setup. I know what button attacks, I know what button changes my items, I know which button heals, I know which button dashes and dodges, etc, etc. Because I've set it up in such that way that I wanted it that way. But with Bond, changing the controls actually made it worse. So, unfortunately, every game is a game-by-game basis, but please do remember, at any point, you can go into the options, and most games, like most modern AAA games, allow this. The older you go back, the harder it is to customize controls. Even things like the Batman Arkham games, I find them unplayable now because I just can't get used to the controls again. And if it was the only thing I was playing, yeah, but I also don't find those sorts of games something that I could, like, really run back into now, because I've already played through what I've played through, so I'm not going to be able to get as immersed as I was the first time. So it just makes it really difficult to replay them. But it's not just controls, and obviously graphics if you're on a PC or anything. Accessibility. Anyone at all, you don't need to be disabled. Anyone at all can use accessibility settings. I have arthritis, I'm visually impaired, I have migraines that make flashing lights a problem, blurring on screen is awful. Like, there's so many different things in modern day gaming. Again, not everything's perfect, not everything has accessibility. Hilariously, the console that I always mention everyone to get in these videos, the Nintendo Switch, Nintendo are abhorrent with their accessibility options, but games like First Light are going to be ported to the Switch, and I know there's a bunch of other stuff that I'll have brought up that is being ported to the Switch, Liza P, Elden Ring, like a lot. So go into the accessibility features, see what you need, like turn on direction indicator and subtitles if you need to, turn on color for text, turn on background, like do make sure that when you are getting a game, as much as I understand, time is limited, and you may be at a point of, I just want to sit down and play my game, and that's great. Like, we've all been there. Unfortunately, this is just part of modern day gaming. Spend a couple of minutes looking, because I'm not even saying spend half an hour like what I end up having to do, because I do have to go to controls, I do have to go to graphics, I do have to go to audio, I do have to go to accessibility. By the time I am done, again, takes 30 minutes, but I know that going in. So I also, if I know I don't have the time to play a game, but I want to play a game later, I will cheat, essentially, and I'll be like, right, I'll boot the game up now, I'll do all the fucking tweak stuff now that I need to do, because I don't have time to play it anyway, and then it means that when I next get around to booting up the game, I can just launch straight into it and not have an issue. For you, hopefully it'll only take a couple minutes. So please do spend a couple of minutes looking at your controls, because if nothing else, looking at what the game is telling you your controls are. If you're new to gaming, on the Switch 2, I've mentioned a lot with why to get that. You can take screenshots. So you could quite literally go into the controller setting or anything like that, and if you need to, if you're worried you're not going to remember it all, you can go, right, I'll take a screenshot of all of that, I'll take a screenshot of all of that, I'll take a screenshot of all of that. I'm currently sitting here wondering if my Switch 2 is on. It is, so I might actually be able to do some shenanigans in this clip using OBS, so I'm going to turn the game capture off and I'm going to turn the window capture on. Yeah, so you could essentially then go into your album on the Switch 2. I know I haven't like fully stretched the thing, but then, and I know these are mostly videos because I've set this up for a different part of one of the videos that you're actually watching, but you can then just go through all of your screenshots, all of your clips, all of your things, and it's like, oh, so I can see that that controls for that. Like, the amount of times that if I'm, even though I've played a ton of games, if I'm playing something new for the first time, like a Monster Hunter or anything where it's a genre that I hadn't put a lot of time into, when I first started Monster Hunter on the Switch, despite playing a couple of the PSP ones a little bit, I'm like, oh, I know fine well I'm in over my head. I took screenshots of literally every single tutorial, every single bit of information that the game was firing at me, because it was firing so much at me, and I'm like, I can't absorb all of this now, but it'll disappear once I turn this box off. So just being able to keep that reminder permanently is so fucking useful. Right, on to the next clip. After the James Bond thing, because what I should have mentioned very quickly about the controls, figure out why it doesn't work for you, because sometimes it may not be that obvious why it doesn't work for you. It might be a case of, it has your brain already deemed, well, because this is the jump button in 4 other games, then to me, my brain, it's automatically telling me this is the jump button, and in this game, it's not jump. Doing little changes like that, I do it all the time. Because to me, yeah, the jump button is my back right paddle on my controller that has 4 buttons. On my Switch 2 controller, which only has 2 back buttons, it's my back right button. So yeah. The next thing, though, the next actual tip to finally start this might sound silly, and it's one of those blatantly obvious things that, of course, but if you are new and you are searching for things like this, then maybe you already know what to search for reviews. Because yeah, searching for reviews, like finding reviewers that vibe with you, finding communities whose opinions match up with yours, like who have people that you can talk to about games, is honestly one of the most important things that you can do. At the end of the day, everyone's different. We all like different things. I am one of the few people who loves playing pool games. I love playing pinball games. I know there's a lot of people out there who genuinely get so confused why people like games like this. It's like, well, why wouldn't you just play actual pinball? Why wouldn't you just play actual pool? Well, I'm visually impaired, and literally when I look down over my glasses to take a shot at pool, I can't see a fucking thing. So I just cannot play this in real life anymore. And as such, I like playing video game pool instead. I'm definitely not like that great at video game pool. Part of it is, for some reason, this refuses to display on my main monitor, and I'm having to play this via OBS, and it it's got some input lag. But also, very truthfully, I don't set up shots that great. I can make easy shots very easily, which I know might sound silly, but anything where I have to put some thought into it, I can kind of be the kind of person who just goes, you know what, I'll just blast and see what chaos happens. So check for reviewers, like, go out of your way. I'm going to mention a few communities right now that I know fine well. Like, this is all my own personal taste. You will have to find your own personal taste, but these are some great starting points. Everyone mocks IGN. IGN have a shit ton of coverage, and as long as you remember that a single person is a single person, and do not automatically treat IGN as this one big conglomerate of, well, they give that a 7, and they give that an 8, and they give that a 9, and how could they give that a 7 when they only give that a 5? You know, it's different people who have different opinions. Learn their names, learn what they like, learn what you like, and then use their opinions that way. If someone absolutely always hates everything that you end off loving, then that in itself can actually be useful, because if they hate it, then chances are you'll love it. But there's IGN, there's the much, much smaller communities, which I personally visit daily. Your Min-Maxes, your Kind of Funny Games, your Easy Allies. I know fine well I'm going to fucking forget someone really important that I absolutely love, but those three would be a good place to start. And to be honest, I might very quickly, seeing as this is just pull footage anyway, open up my YouTube subscription, because there's other places that I go to daily, but they're like hockey related things. So yeah, just trying to think of who actually does video game reviews that I genuinely... Ooh, Mortisimal Gaming. Mortisimal Gaming is, I think that's how you pronounce that correctly. I'm going to have to quickly scroll down. Yes, Mortisimal Gaming. They are a reviewer that I found who reviews things after 100%, and their skill level in action games matches my skill level in action games. So if he is complaining that the game is too easy, then I'm going to complain it's too easy. If he's complaining it's too hard, I'm going to be like, holy shit, this is too hard. So yeah, like, there's some things where my skill is a little better at certain games. Like, he will absolutely destroy me if we ever played a CRPG, but something like Ninja Gaiden, he's like, oh, I was struggling on that, and it's like, I'm kind of still good enough with action games like that to be fine with it. But Mortisimal Gaming, strongly recommend, because you get a very in-depth review from him. Granted, that does mean you'll get spoilers, but he's very good at warning when the spoilers are coming up, and you can skip the chapters and everything like that. But very great source. Now, and I know that is probably more for an advanced gamer recommendation than a new gamer, because at the end of the day, I've just literally said the guy's got a really high skill ceiling. But either way, I Dream of Indie, amazing channel for any form of independent coverage. I love a lot of the people on it. I was over the moon when one of my favorite YouTubers from a different channel, their channel got shut down, and they actually moved over to I Dream of Indie. I was over the moon with that. Just quickly continuing going through, I've already hit up to M, so this won't take that much longer. I feel like I'm definitely missing someone, and I'll have scrolled past it, but at this moment in time, I think I've mentioned the major places for getting good reviews, for good coverage of indie stuff, good coverage of mainstream stuff. Giant Bomb actually is another one. I've started to scroll up, and yeah, somehow I'd missed Giant Bomb in between Easy Allies and I Dream of Indie. But Giant Bomb is another good one that's got a lot of good people who have very varying opinions. You will get a lot more niche games, I've noticed, with Giant Bomb. That they are one of the people who I do not support them financially, purely because there's only so much money and so much time in the world and anything. And the places that I do support, I support a couple of hockey places. I support Min-Max and Kind of Funny. I would love to, and I might eventually one day be able to support financially Giant Bomb, because they are a very good source and font of knowledge for a lot of things with video games and gaming history and things like that as well. It's not just video game reviews. That's what I'd say with Min-Max and Kind of Funny as well, on top of doing reviews for things. Apologies if you just heard a loud bang, by the way. It is a very windy day, and that was the wind whipping my window open as wide as it possibly can do. But it's not just reviews. You will actually get a lot of knowledge from industry stuff. So if you care about sales, if you care about things coming out, if you care about this, that, and the other, like, they'll also tell you some video game history stuff. They've got community questions. Like, there's a lot of knowledge available, and I can strongly recommend those are some great places to start with. And there's plenty more as well. There's channels that I haven't got around to mentioning that I'll just sometimes search from time to time, like a Gaming Bolt. I'll check their stuff out from time to time, but I don't check them religiously. It's more a case of find these places for when you need the information. But again, there is only so much time in the day, and sometimes you will watch a review of a game and think this is going to be perfect for me, but then you'll watch another reviewer and they'll bring things up that the first reviewer didn't, and it's like, oh, actually that's something that's an issue for me. Like, never just watch one, but you don't need to watch 50, you know? Right, and with that, on to the next clip. This will actually be the last one, I think, for this video, and then I'll do an ending. I'm annoyed that while I've actually been editing this, because this is probably the last clip, I've realised that I had a video that was there that was named one thing, and I think it's done one of those weird things that Windows does, and I've accidentally named one of the dead files that I wanted to delete, and then deleted one that I wanted. It was a tiny little add-on to the Borlex Pit experimentation. I cannot for the life of me remember what it possibly could have been that I wanted to bring up, so I do apologise. It's an annoyance that's just the way my brain works, but maybe someone in the comments will go, well, hang on a second, seeing as this was all about experimentation of, like, well, fire and ice and everything, maybe they can help out. This is one where I'm hoping that someone will be able to pick up by Slack, where I honestly can't remember what it could be, and hell, maybe I just accidentally named the vid, and it did the whole, well, you've already named a video this, so I've named it twice, but I'm pretty sure I did have to go back and record something, because something jogged my memory of, oh, I should have mentioned that when it came to experimentation. But anyway, this is now waffling, and I already know this video goes long. This one is something that I probably should have brought up in other places, but in all honesty, I think Spider-Man turned out to be the best thing that I could show. Reminder that video games are designed to push back. This is something else that is unique to this medium. There are movies out there, like awful movies that I don't even want to fucking mention, but awful horror movies. I'm a huge horror fan, but there's some horror movies that are designed to kind of push back and make you want to, like, leave the cinema, but it's extremely rare, and it's more so that you will find it in games, because books don't push back, movies for the most part don't push back, TV shows and that, but video games are designed to push back. Some people, like myself, like games to be incredibly difficult. I love Elden Ring, I have mentioned it dozens of times. I know at least one clip I've recorded will be for Elden Ring, because it has a lot that I want to talk about. It's an incredibly difficult game to a lot of people, but it's the kind of game I put on to relax when I need something easy to sit back and chill to. Because for me, that is something that I find easy, because I play so many games like that. But Elden Ring only has one difficulty, and while there are ways to negate some of the difficulty with summons and systems in the game that you will struggle and have to learn and maybe look up at a guide, the actual gameplay will remain the same difficulty. There are a lot of games like that, and I don't like that that's a thing. I think that changing difficulty should be mandatory in every game. I truly do, because this, more than anything, is one of the biggest accessibility issues to a new gamer, to a disabled gamer, to any kind of gamer out there. When you are playing a game, do remember, games are supposed to push back. They are supposed to be difficult. You are supposed to overcome a challenge. For the most part. Not every game is like that. Not every game should be like that. Not every game needs to be like that. But a lot of people play these things because we want to overcome a challenge. We want to have some friction. We want to feel like we're actually accomplishing something in-game. And if we're just constantly handed our victory without really doing anything, then we don't get the same accomplishment out of that. But everyone has a different skill ceiling. There is literally a term in video games called a skill check. And it's called a skill check because there are games out there where they will put bosses in, and there's so many people who, if you actually go to the achievements in video games, you will see how many people have actually beat the game that you're playing. That is usually such a great indicator for if a game is good, if a game is too difficult, or anything like that. There are some trophies that I have, there are some achievements that I have that I am in the less than 1% of people who've actually earned them. There are video games out there that are massively popular. I think Red Dead Redemption 2, I'm pretty sure people were saying it only has like a 20% completion rate when you do the average of all of the achievements, so Steam, Xbox, and PlayStation trophies, all of them together. It's like less than 20% of people have beat the epilogue, which is finishing the game. There are so many different things out there that will stop you from playing a game and enjoying a game, but there's so many things that you can just tweak and customize. If you are playing something like a Spider-Man that's got a really good story and you are struggling with combat, just put it on Friendly Neighborhood. No one cares. This is your game for you. If you are finding it ridiculously difficult on its default difficulty, that's what I would always recommend, by the way. For anyone who is new to gaming, this is like it says it there. This setting is for players who like a balanced experience with some challenge. That's kind of the whole point. And honestly, I actually play most of my games on that. I truly do. I like hard games, but I don't want every game to be tear my hair out difficult. I need spaces for that. With Spider-Man, I actually am really, really fucking good at this game, so whenever I play it now, I start it on Ultimate, which is insanity for a lot of people. I understand it is. And it honestly kind of is for me, because then combat, it's not harder. It just means if I make a single mistake, I'll feel. Now, I tend not to make mistakes because of the way this combat goes. It really is an algorithm, and once I've learned punch, punch, dodge, gadget, punch, dodge, gadget, you know, I'll not really mess it up, because it's kind of difficult to mess up, but it also makes all of the combat take so much longer. And this is another thing, time is different for everyone. Like, it's the same for everyone, but it's different for everyone. Some people, 24 hours is not a lot of time. Some people, 24 hours, they're getting so much help from all the different angles. 24 hours feels like tons of time. Depending on how much time you have, depends on what difficult you want the game to be, what difficult you want the combat to be. I like playing this on Ultimate. I've still never actually finished a file, because I realised this is taking an awful lot of time for a replayer. And yeah, I'm getting the satisfaction of, oh my god, I am good enough to play this game on its hardest difficulty. I knew I would be. Sometimes gets petered out into, oh my god, that took me 5 minutes when I played it on Amazing, and it just took 25 minutes on Ultimate, and I didn't feel like... Change the difficulty if you need to. Look into if a game has what's known as a story mode. Now, on this, like, they went for different things, because obviously it's the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, it's the Amazing Spider-Man, it's the Spectacular Spider-Man, so they did the play on words. But in a lot of games, they'll have story mode or journey mode, and the whole point is it'll be to remove almost all the friction. Sometimes they make the puzzles easier, most of the time it makes the combat easier, some of the time you can just outright skip the combat. Like, whatever you need to do difficulty-wise, games are supposed to push back. They are. That's just what they are. But that doesn't mean that you enjoy that. If it turns out you're the kind of person who doesn't enjoy games pushing back, or feels that they're pushing back a little too much, change the difficulty if you can. And for games like Elden Ring, find a good community of people who can teach you how to play the game, and do not listen to the tryhards who say you have to beat everything without using a summon. It's called the Mimic tier. It is the best summon in the fucking game. They've nerfed it like twice, and it is still the most overpowered summon in the game. It duplicates you, which means you can set up to do synergy, like I've already mentioned, funnily enough, with the clip that I started with, the thing that I forgot. I'm gonna laugh if this turns out to be it. I seriously am. With Elden Ring, you can do something called a Frost proc, and I will set it up so that my altar, my Mimic, has a fire weapon, so that every time I frost a boss and it deals a massive amount of damage, my Mimic will run along and set it on fire, thawing it completely, allowing me to do another Frost proc, dealing massive damage to take down bosses really easy. If I go Frost and Bleed, which is my favourite combo, I can kill things in that game so disgustingly easy with the way that I play. I am genuinely thinking that's it. I can't believe that just happened. I'm going to credit Brain Training for that, I really am. But yeah, with that, this clip, and I know none of these are clips, and I know I've started pretty much everyone by saying so. There's other things that I'll address with if I ever do a part 2 of this. But until then, this is the last clip. On to the ending. So, now we get to the end of the video. It's going to be the same on both videos, so if you've already watched the end of one, then you truly don't need to watch the other one, because it is going to just be the same footage. But I do need to say a few things. Obviously, this is just the beginners, the beginning things of tips, of tricks, of gamer lore and stuff like that. If you are watching this and you point, like, if there's something I didn't bring up that you wish that I had done, if you actually are knowledgeable with video games yourselves, that you think would be really helpful for, I thought the clips would autoplay, by the way, if you thought that would be really helpful for new gamers, then please do post it in the comments. I will potentially do a part 2 for each of these if I eventually come up with enough things, but for now I think the amount that I've put in, I don't even know. I would love to think that I'll have got to 10 each, but it starts to get difficult when you start to subcategorize all of this stuff as well, and I've actually asked for other people to help out, so some of the communities I'm in, and I'm over the moon and beyond grateful for those, any bits of help that I got with those. Yeah, but it's one of those, that the piece of knowledge, the actual full-on piece of knowledge that I want to end both videos with, I've mentioned this in a lot of videos before, but I always figure this could be someone's first video, especially because of the nature of these. If, after looking through all of this, you think games are silly and don't understand why people get into them or anything, I actually can understand that. I can see it as valid. And it's why I want to impress upon you the fact that movies, TV, books, even albums, there's pretty much one way to interact with them, for the most part. It's, you sit down and you experience the story that it's telling you. There's obviously some choose your own adventure books and things like that, and not every album has a story. Sometimes albums are like greatest hits, so it's a collection of tracks, and it can affect the flow of things, versus the actual album, where there's bands like Camelot out there, where Camelot do actually do operas as their albums, so you can't really listen to their stuff on shuffle if you want the complete story. There's only one real way to interact with all of those forms of media, and they're great at what they do. I love movies and TV and books and albums. There's things out there that are truly important to me, but when it comes to my main hobby, my main entertainment medium, it's gaming. I will pick gaming over anything. Books are the only thing that might genuinely rival games at times, but even then, I see a rival, it would take maybe a half-second extra thought, because it is games for me. It always has been and always will be. It's the only media experience that you can experience. Like, that's the whole point of it. Games are very different things. They're completely different to everyone, and every person out there has different likes and different wants and different wishes out of their video games. Just by doing this sum up here, I've intentionally set up a bunch of clips of loads of different forms of games, just to show off a wide range of different things you can do, from boss fights, and this, granted, is one of the worst boss fights I've ever had the misfortune of playing. The Donkey Kong Country Returns games boss fights are they're terrible. But it's something that you cannot get in any other medium. Like, just the fact that there's boss fights, you don't get that in movies. I mean, the closest thing to like a video game movie, in my opinion, at the moment, I've been rewatching the John Wick movies, and I truly do love the John Wick movies because they are just nonsensical, like video games, in very similar ways. It's a case of, he goes through a very loose plot of his dog dying, and that takes him into place to place, where then the plot actually expands with the lore, and he goes to loads of different places randomly, like Casablanca, almost as if it's like a side quest, and there's back travel and backtracking, and sometimes he has to go back to places. Like, it's got generic grunt fights followed by boss fights. Like, those movies are the only thing that I can say comes close to a video game experience, and even then, I experience that movie the exact same way every single time that I watch it, because that's all I can do. Whereas with video games, I choose what I do in it. And even games that don't have that much choice have more choice than a movie, because it could be as simple as I just play as a different character, or I run a different build, or I use a different weapon, or there's so many different things. And it's why, for me personally, gaming is the best medium on the planet for telling anything. You can get some exceptional stories. But then there's games like this, Smash Brothers, where they're not designed to have a story. They're just designed to be fun. And it does still have some story mode. I'm not trying to crap on the amazing cutscenes that are in the Smash Brothers franchise, but for the most part, it's just zaniness. It's having the Wii Fit trainer fight Ganondorf, fight Pac-Man, fight Samus and Dark Samus. Like, you know, it's one of those wild things about games. And until you actually experience it, until you feel it, you will not get it. There are so many games, there are so many times I will watch people playing stuff and doing videos of, I found this old game, and it's like, I understand it looks terrible, but it plays great. Like, it truly is the only medium that you have to jump into. And I understand there is such a barrier to entry, from cost, from which console is right for you, or do you get a PC, or like which controller do I use, or which game do I start, or if I'm struggling with this. And it's why I wanted to make these videos. It's why I wanted to make something where I try my damnedest to help you, a complete, hopefully new person to video games, get into this genre, into this space, because I understand there's a lot of toxicity, there's a lot of elitism, and there's a lot of gatekeeping with a lot of things, and fuck all those people, quite frankly. They truly do not speak for all of us, and it's why I wanted to make this channel, so that in the hopes of you watching this can go, oh, I never actually understood that I should look behind a waterfall, or I never understood that when I see a barrel over there that says danger, it's actually a good thing for me in a game. It's a weapon for me, you know? And yeah, all of the other tips and tricks and gamer lore and everything that's in both of these videos, hopefully they will help you get into it. Hopefully they will help you understand some stuff, because I truly do understand that getting your first video game system, which I always recommend as a Switch 2 at this moment in time, before the price hike goes live on September 1st, I always need to make sure to get that in as well. And it's why I'll probably finish this list before I manage to think of 10, because I want this up before September 1st. It's why picking your first console, getting to grips with your first controller, which just, and I know I'm about to do live math here, but I need to actually be looking at the controller when I do it. You have ZL, ZR, LR, so that's 4 buttons right there. There's then another button on the top of the Switch 2 controller which syncs up, but you don't tend to need to know that. It just syncs with your console. You rarely have to press it. But even so, that's a 5th button on a controller. We then have GL, GR, that's 7. We have the left analog and the right analog, which both of those, you push them down and you'll hear a click. That's another button, so that's 9 buttons plus 2 sticks. The D-pad, which is the thing that looks like a plus symbol across, it's technically 4 buttons as well, so we're already at 9 plus 2 sticks, so that's 13 plus 2 sticks. Then you've got the C button, which is for a chat function, so that's 14 buttons plus 2 sticks. Then we have the capture button, the home button, the minus button, the plus button, so that's another 4. So what did I say I was at? Was I at 14? So that's 18. And then ABXY, so that's fucking 22 buttons and 2 analog sticks on a controller. If you've never held a video game controller before in your life, if you've never wrote anything in your life, and I've given you a calligraphy set and just went, there you go, do some calligraphy, I fully understand there are so many barriers to entry to this fucking entertainment medium. It is the hardest one to get into. It is the most expensive one to get into. And it's why, making these videos, I want to try to help you out with tips, tricks, with like what you should get, why I think you should get it, all of the options and ranges that you get from getting these things, and I truly do hope that these help. And with that, this video finally comes to an end. I really do hope anything here helped, and again, if there's stuff that you do already know, maybe you're a new gamer, and maybe you actually had been able to pick up on a few of these things, but then there's some things that I hadn't mentioned, that because you're coming in fresh with a new vantage point, that you're like, oh, well, I really struggled with this, so I think other new gamers should know that, then please do. You don't just have to be a gamer like myself. I'm not just asking for your help, I'm asking for your help, you know? So yeah, I'm asking for everyone's help. Just post in the comments things that you need to do, like, that you feel you would have liked to have known. Right. Anyway, I've been Sky Fellowship. I truly do hope you have a great rest of your day. Until next time, bye!